As I said, he's returned to basketball and his hometown of Hampton, Virginia, with his latest movie, No Crossover. It airs on April 13th at 7 p.m. And before we talk to Steve James, we're going to show a short clip from the movie. It's actually the very beginning of the film.
Over the years, I've bragged that basketball star Allen Iverson grew up in my hometown.
Man, he is uncomfortable.
This would often spark a debate. At barely 6 feet tall, is Allen Iverson inch for inch the most talented player ever?
I'm supposed to be a franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Or is he uncoachable?
Listen, we're talking about practice. Not a game, not a game.
And as selfish a star as there ever was.
Thinking only about himself.
Is he an icon who stayed true to himself? Or a thug in basketball shorts? I first heard about him from my dad when he was just Allen Iverson, the high school phenom. My dad first marveled at this scrawny, fearless kid's exploits on the football field, even though Iverson played for our tribal Bethel High School. By basketball season, my dad was saying he'd never seen an athlete quite like him before.
The crowds would scream his childhood nickname, Bubba Chuck.
Back then, no one would have believed that this celebrated, even beautiful athlete would soon racially divide the city more than anyone ever had. And that today, so many years later, he still haunts my hometown. Still makes me wonder about how far we've come.
It's 1993. Iverson, great football player and basketball player, has just had a great game. And then he goes to a bowling alley, and there's a brawl takes place. And somebody called Iverson the N-word. That leads to the brawl. Chairs are thrown, probably by the African Americans. No whites are arrested, but a number, including Iverson, of African Americans are arrested and have to go through the criminal system and eventually prison. What was it about? I mean, this all happened in 93.
Right.
17, 18 years later, why did you want to go? What was there to go back and revisit about this?
Well, when this happened, I was finishing Hoop Dreams, and I remember very distinctly talking to my parents about it, particularly my dad. And you have to understand, my dad used to send me clippings of Allen Iverson before this happened and say, this kid is an incredible athlete. Now, for my dad to send me these clippings, my dad went to Hampton High School, as I did. He was a crabber. You saw that on his hat. Allen played for Bethel. My dad never sent me clippings of anybody but Hampton High School. It was just, that's how important it was. So this kid was really special as an athlete. So when this happened, he used to tell me about what was going on, and before it became a national story. And I remember thinking that there's something very significant going on in my hometown. I really should go back and film this, but I couldn't. And so I just thought it was one of those missed opportunities to try and do a film about something I thought was really significant about my hometown. Maybe it would have implications for being significant in other ways. And then when ESPN came along and said, what story in the last 30 years would you like to do a film about that you think is an important story in the world of sports, I immediately thought of this, because I suspected that what happened 17 years ago in my hometown really had relevance for today, and I feel like that's what I found. And I hope if you see the film, well, you've seen the film because my God, you've seen them all. Which, I feel like it should.
I was just joking.
You read IMDb. I was going to bring you a plaque or something, but it's like I hope when people see the film, they'll realize that it has tremendous relevance for today.
Well, did what happened then expose, in your mind, what was already there under the surface in your town, or did it fundamentally change your town, or both?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think it certainly exposed what was underneath the surface. I mean, I think the thing about Allen Iverson, where I grew up, high school athletes were everything because there's no pro teams, there's no major college teams. So the high school athlete was the pinnacle, and no one was held in higher regard than Allen Iverson. And so for Allen Iverson to be such a divisive figure in the midst of this meant something. There was something about Allen Iverson and this incident that sparked this. And I think the fact that it was a racial brawl was a big part of it. And I think with Allen, what you find out in the film is, with Allen, even though people loved to watch him play, he would pack an arena full of 10,000 people to see him play, black and white. When there was all these rumors about his life away from the court, that he was arrogant, that he hung out with drug dealers, that he came from a broken family, that, you know, that he was a bad kid, basically. Mm-hmm. And so when this happened, I think in the community, it largely divided along lines of race, where the black community felt like they had to protect this kid and his future, and the white community felt like, this kid's not going to get away with this. He gets away with everything else. He doesn't go to school. He can do whatever he wants. He's not going to get away with this. So I think it definitely opened up and tapped into all this underlying resentments and racism and feelings of division between the races, and made it very public. Did it change the hometown? I think it really made my hometown recognize that it had a racial problem in a way maybe it never had before. Has it changed my hometown? That's a very good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that, because people feel just as strongly today about it as they did then.
Well, that's one of the things that comes across in the film, is that the emotions are still so raw. I mean, you have one woman who had been involved in protests back then as a teacher and an educator, and she says, you can't make this film. She's an African American.
Right.
She says, why can you make this film? And she kind of puts you on the spot, and you answer her, and you explain why you think you're entitled to make the film. But it was incredible how raw the emotions still are in that town over something that happened so long ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people either spoke about it as if it happened yesterday, which you see in the film, or they didn't want to speak about it at all because of those feelings. I mean, there were so many people that did not want to go on camera and be interviewed. And I think it has to do with the fact that it was a racial incident. And I just think that people in general and Americans in America, we have a hard time talking about race. I mean, it's something that's so omnipresent in our lives and has been for, you know, forever, but we don't want to talk about it. It's hard to talk about because I think white people fear that they're going to be accused of being racist if they express themselves, and it's a contrary opinion. If they're against Allen Iverson, they worry about being perceived as racist. And I think a lot of black folks felt like if they talk about history and they talk about the history of racism, that white people will go, oh, here we go again, you know. And so I think what happens a lot of time is that when these things happen, white people and black people aren't having the same conversation at all. They're talking about different things. It means different things to them.
So when you do a film like this and you're talking to people about racial issues, how do you know that you're getting the truth out of anybody you talk to? How do you know that somebody is not saying one thing to you and then when they're with their family is saying something completely different?
Right. Well, you never know for sure, but I think one of the things I'm really pleased about with the film is that the people that agreed to participate, and a lot of people did, I felt like they were extremely candid. I mean, I think you get that. I mean, this is a film that has a point of view about what happened, and I come to a point of view late in the movie and I express it, but it's not at the expense of the differing views that were there at that time. And I feel like people were really candid and honest and open and expressed those opinions, and you hear them in this film. And I've had people that were in the film who have seen the film now tell me that they appreciate that about the film. I've had people on both sides of the Allen Iverson issue say they like the film because they feel like they were treated honestly and sympathetically and fairly, and their voice was heard. So,
how much do you, with any film that you make, how much do you care what the subjects of the film think of the film?
Well, I care a lot about that, but I always show the film to the subjects, the main subjects, before it's done. And you will meet documentary filmmakers who will say, I never do that, because they feel like it's a violation in some way of a journalistic ethic. It's like, you're a writer, I know, you know, a lot of writers will say, oh, no, you can't show the article that you've written.
I don't care about anything that's...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of times when people say don't want to do that, it's because they're afraid of hearing the reaction of their subjects, frankly. And I think, especially in films like Hoop Dreams or some of the other films where you're spending a lot of time with people, and they are really giving so much of their lives to you, I feel like you owe it to them to show it to them and take their best shot if that's what it's going to be. And I found, and be willing to listen. And it's part of building the trust, because I tell people at the beginning of the process, the key people, that you're going to see this before it's done, and you're going to get a chance to tell us if you think it's right or wrong or whatever. And we will listen. I'm not going to give you editorial control. I can't do that. But I promise you I'll listen, and I think it's part of building the trust with people. And I've had it mostly benefit films. In fact, it always has benefited films, because I've had people say, no, you got that wrong, and they tell you something different. I always have a camera with me,